Hey, what's going on, guys? The Heart Pirates TCG here, and we have the regionals in Texas right around the corner. I know the France one is happening right now, as we speak, but we have the Texas regionals coming up pretty soon, and then we have a couple regionals after that. But I just want to talk about what to expect in the regional coming up, and what kind of decks that you'll see and what people are playing, new builds, new strategies people are trying out. So before you submit your deck list, I want you to just take this into account and then build your deck around that. So I made it like a little tier list type thing, but this isn't exactly a tier list. It's just something that you're going to be seeing. So technically round 1 through 4, what you're going to be seeing, and then round 7 plus, and then for X1 and then X2, that type of thing right there, right? So round 1 through 4 for undefeated is always a little bit more random, I'll say. These are the decks that you're going to be possibly seeing, right? A variant of blue, right? So either Doflamingo or Ivankov, more than likely Doflamingo though, okay? Doflamingo is a very consistent deck that can get a lot of wins early on, but the better decks and players it faces throughout the tournament, it starts to fall off because it just doesn't have the late game power, and then it could lose. It has a couple bad matchups like Zoro, for example, and then Kid as well. So you're going to see a variant of blue in there, more than likely in the first 4 rounds. Just be careful. A lot of people that are going to this regionals usually have access to all the cards. So if you play a Doflamingo, they most likely have access to the Jinbei, the promo Jinbei, the one on KO, bottom deck at 3 or less, right? So that'll help out a little bit with the Zoro matchup. It'll help out a lot with the green matchup, and just keep that in mind, right? Now the Law, you're going to see Law pretty often throughout the tournament, regardless, because it's just a popular deck, popular character. I have the hand tattoo, that type of stuff right there. Law is playing the standard that, obviously they're playing the restand Law, right? The starter deck Law that, restands a 5 or less supernova. So be on the lookout for that. They play a lot, obviously they're playing the Dawn, and then they're playing the Otamas, they're playing Jet Pistol. Some of them are even playing Gordon, the one that you see in Zoro, where if you Dawn -3, or if you put it at the bottom of the deck, you -3,000 power to something else, and then you can either kill something or jet pistol it or just attack at it a bunch of times and make them either kill it or discard a bunch of cards in hand. So a lot of them are playing that. Be very careful because that card is very devastating. It is very annoying, because if you're trying to just play a bunch of big beaters that you think can't get jet pistoled, think again, right? So Gordon changes the game in a lot of different scenarios, and it's a 1 cost. And it's searchable through Dawn. So just build your deck around that, and play around that too, just in case you're relying on not getting jet pistoled. Sometimes that it can happen regardless of how big your character is, especially Newgate. Zoro. Not much to talk about. You're going to see a lot of Zoros. It's a powerful deck. It's a pretty consistent deck. You just need a couple 1 costs, and then maybe a Nami or 2, and a couple of your boosters. Other than that, obviously they're playing the New Gate, right? There's not a lot of different Zoro variations, but you're gonna be playing that more than likely in one of the first 4 rounds. It's gonna be a popular deck too. A lot of people are playing it. Now New Gate. So this is actually something I wanted to talk about. This is actually the main reason why I wanted to make this video, is because as the meta shifted, we actually saw more and more people switching back to the Moby Dick version of New Gate. Right, of Whitebeard. So what this means, right, is you're going to see a lot of Smoker come back into the meta, because Smoker is good against the Boatbeard version because it's not as aggressive. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to play Boatbeard, just because you're playing into more smokers now, and there will be more smokers are popping up into the meta because of that, the resurgence of the Moby Dick. Some people are trying to play the hybrid version. The Straw Hat version is actually very it hasn't fallen off because it's still very powerful and has great matchups against certain decks, but it's much worse in the mirror match. So if you're playing the Moby Dick version, you have to be very careful, or if you're playing the Straw Hat version, you have to be very careful. The later rounds you get, the later you get into the game, you're going to be playing a lot more Boatbeards, because it's just better in the mirror match, and Newgate is one of the most popular decks, obviously, because it's really powerful, right? Smoker, not much to be said about Smoker. It has a couple good matchups, it has a couple bad matchups, right? Good matchup for Smoker is what is it called? Is obviously Newgate right here. Kaido can be a good matchup, just depending on what kind of deck they're playing. And then Kid and Kinemon are, I want to say Kid, if they're playing like the Protect the Castle version, is like 65-35, just depending on draws and whatnot and, overall luck. But Kinemon is a little bit more, has a lot more early game pressure than the Kid does. So Kinemon maybe is a little bit better into Smoker than Kid is. So Smoker, obviously, they're changing their deck a little bit for Smoker too, right? So Smoker, they're playing a lot of the Dawn minuses that inherently, obviously, like they're playing Meteor Volcano, Dawn -2, draw a card. They're playing Sengoku's when attacking Dawn -2 something, or not Dawn -2, cost -2 something. They're playing. Some people are playing Character Garp, just to see another form of removal. So not just Sakazuki, but Character Garp, and that is a consistent body on the field. If you can't get rid of that card, it's very frustrating, very, very, very frustrating. So be on the lookout for that. They're playing just a lot of Dawn minusing cards that aren't just Kuzan, right? So if you think they're relying on Kuzan, they are to an extent, but not not as much as they used to. Not as much as they used to. Then you're gonna be playing Kinemon, right? Kinemon is very aggressive. They have the Odins. A lot of people are playing Toki. They're playing the Yamatos. The 5-drop Yamato, it kind of fell off. No one's really playing it anymore. I'm not sure exactly why, but I just haven't seen a lot of people playing it. I mean, there's not really any pitfalls for or any like traps for Kinemon. It's a pretty straightforward deck, not a lot of variety. Now Kid, for example, Kid is very, very, very different, right? So you can play it Protect the Castle version, you can play it the double swing version, you can play it just straight up balanced Kid, with the Nekomamushis and the the Land of Wano engine, all that type of stuff. Some people are even playing Demon Face. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a 6 cost. I believe it's a supernova, so you can search it off Bonnie, and then it kills 2 rested 5 or less characters. A lot of people are playing that just for the mirror matchups. They're playing against not really Zoro, but for Law, for example, or Doflamingo, that type of stuff right there. That's why they're playing that. Some people are, some people aren't. I've seen a couple of builds where people are playing it. I think it's solid if it works, and if not, it's a dead card unless you discard it off Kid's effect. That's the reason they play that in Kid and not in Kinemon, because you can just discard it. You can always discard it. Kaido. There's a lot of different versions of Kaido, obviously. You still have to play around the 10-drop, guys. I know I wasn't playing the 10-drop, but a lot of people dislike that. Not dislike it, but a lot of people say that the 10-drop is still very powerful, and I agree to an extent, right? It's great into the Newgate matchup, right? And the Zoro matchup, because if you bomb their board, right? And, you kill their Newgate, you kill a couple of their 1 costs, or for example, Kid, if they try to wall off with Kid, or Odin, or, they drop Kuzan, the 10 drop is still very valuable in the meta, and it can do a lot of damage, right? It can make a lot of waves. So Kaido is still a scary deck. You're going to be seeing it a lot more in the first couple rounds because it's very powerful, but it's inconsistent. You're not going to see it as much as the game progresses. All right. Same with Magellan. Magellan falls off very hard late game. There's some variants where people are trying out where they're trying to get a better late game, but it's tough. It's very tough. If they don't see their Magellans are pretty much useless late game, and they don't have a counter, and it's a tough position to be in. All right. So now same concept, right? So let's just keep in mind we're undefeated here in theory, right? What are you going to be playing in round 7+, right? We're not going to do the intermediary rounds because it could be random. I'm not entirely sure, but round 7+, almost guaranteed, you're going to be playing, either Newgate or Law or Zoro or Kinemon. These are the 4 matchups you're more than likely going to see in the later rounds, all right? And you have to think. You're going to have to really think about deck building, because if you're a great player and your deck is very weak against one of these 4 decks, then it's going to be very difficult to top in the later rounds, because, if you lose, let's say, for example, to Law right here, then you drop to X1, and then you play against a random deck that you're not so prepared against, like, for example, a Magellan, right? And you lose that. Now you're on the cusp of not topping in this regional, right? So round 7+ undefeated, you're more than likely going to be playing one of these 4 decks. There might be something that sneaks in there, like maybe maybe a Kaido. Maybe Kaido sneaks in there just because it's very powerful, and if it draws well throughout the whole tournament, and sees representation, then odds are one person is going to be in that top round undefeated. But yeah, so you have your Kaido right there. I'm going to throw him in there too. Let's move down to X1, right? So X1 gets a little bit different. There's a couple decks that you're going to be seeing that are decent, right? But just aren't the top tier, right? So you're going to probably be seeing an X1 1 through 4, probably a Luffy in there somewhere, right? There's some Luffy stands out there. A couple of you guys really love this deck. I can see why. It seems kind of fun. You know, Bandai loves red, and you know, it's just very powerful in general. But you're going to be probably seeing a Luffy in there, possibly a Z as well. All right, Z is very good into Kinemon. It's very good into like Doflamingo. It's good into like Kid, obviously, just like both the green decks. It's very weak into Zoro though. So the later that you get into the tournament, you're gonna be playing against a lot of more than likely consistent decks, right? If you're still on the verge of topping, right? They get there, the decks get there because either the pilots are really good, or the decks are consistent or powerful, or both, or all three, I guess, right? But there is some variations in there once you drop down to a loss, because that means you're gonna be playing against less consistent decks. For example, if you're X1, you're more than likely going to be playing, again, one of the blue matchups, right? Dofi, Ivankov, more than likely, you're going to be playing one of those, right? Same with Law. Law can get unlucky on, you know, bottom decking cards at the wrong time and not being able to last the whole time to recycle through the deck. So you're going to be playing against Law more than likely. Now, real quick, I forgot to mention, but Luffy, I'm sure you guys have, you know, seen a couple of builds circling around here. If you are going to be going to regionals and paying attention to that type of thing, Luffy is going to be, they're playing very similar to what they did last set. There's two different builds that I've seen, right? It's like the vanilla beatdown type thing, you know, with like the Straw Hat version. You know, you have the cards that work really well with the Dom manipulation, for example, like Robin, right? And Shanks and people like that, right? Ben, and then they have just like the vanillas like Ben Beckman thing, and you know, and that type of engine. And then there's like the mixed engine where it kind of plays a little bit like Zoro, but with a little bit more vanilla beatdown. So it plays, you know, like the Meccano, and then it plays Dadan. It obviously plays the Nami, and then the Robin. It plays a couple beatdown things, and then the most important card that it plays is it also plays the Newgate, right? The Edward Newgate 9-cost character. It plays that too, just for more top end, right? So that build can be very scary. Be on the lookout for that. If you didn't know, that deck can be very scary. I've played against it a couple times. It can draw. It can be very devastating if it draws well. I still think it's the worst of the red decks, which is why I'm gonna have it and in this bracket right here, right? Obviously, you're going to be playing against a variety of all the meta decks as well. Round 4, more than likely, right? So you're going to be doing that and that and that. So all these decks, you're going to be playing 1 through 4, right? And then as we get to X1, round 7 plus, okay? You're more than likely not going to see... So I'll obviously go over the decks you're going to see. You're going to see a Newgate. You're going to see a Law. You're going to see a Zoro. I'll give it to you guys, all right? You might see a Luffy. You might see a Doflamingo. And then obviously Kinemon. After that, I think all of these decks kind of fall off a little bit because their matchups are very tough, right? And the reason I say that is because if you think about it, Z loses to Zoro very hard, right? In a round after round 7 or 8, they're more than likely going to play 2 or 3 Zoros, and they don't have a great win percentage against them, so they're going to fall off to the X2s. Ivankov loses pretty hard to Whitebeard, so you're probably going to play a lot of those. Smoker loses to Aggression. It can lose to a variety of other things, you know, if people can just outgrind them, or if they just draw really poorly. So you're probably not going to see them. Kaido, you might see a Kaido, just depending on if it draws well, and then everything else kind of falls off. Also, you might see a Kid just depending on the variant, the list of it, but I highly doubt it. All right. Then you move on to X2, right? X2 is where the madness starts to happen. This is where you see, obviously, all of these decks in the first couple rounds, I mean, you have to really like X2 in the first 4 rounds. It's very, very rare that you're going to be topping anyway. But this is where you're going to be seeing the Sanjis, the Luffys. You're going to see Odin's like running around here. You're going to see Blurple Crocodile. You're going to see Blurple Kaido, Garp. You're going to see all of these random decks, right? If you're X2 at this point, right? It's very tough because your tiebreakers aren't going to be great. So I'm very sorry that this happened to you. If you are X2 by, you know, in the first 4 rounds, I'm very sorry. But X2 as you're getting into the later rounds. All right, this is important. You're going to be playing against Doflamingo. You're going to be playing against, more than likely, a Kid variant. You're going to be playing against possibly a Kaido. Obviously Zoro. The meta decks, obviously, you're going to be playing against them, right? People just get bad luck sometimes. And then you're going to be playing against them. Obviously, you'll probably see a Luffy. There's like all of these decks you're going to be seeing a lot more of. And you just have to be very cognizant of your deck building at that time, right? So you want to pick a deck, obviously, that you're good with, one that you like, right? Because that's very important, because you don't want to get burned out of this game too. But if you do want to get burned out of this game, play a deck you don't like, practice the hell out of it, play 100, 500 matches if you want to against all these different matchups, and then win that prize card, right? But the other steps are building your deck around what your worst matchups are and what your best matchups are. For example, if you're playing against Smoker, right? If you're playing Zoro, right? If that's the deck that you choose to use at this tournament, you don't have to dedicate any cards to the Smoker matchup, because it's not like it's easy, right? It's much easier than other matchups, right? Maybe that's a bad example because Zoro is like, you pretty much have like one list, for example. You have like one, there's not much diversity. But for Law, for example, right? Law has a great matchup also into Smoker because it just has a little annoying 5Ks, and they don't want to discard they don't want to Sakazuki a Nami or a Bonnie. That just it isn't great, right? Obviously they can Sakazuki a Law too, but the reason I say that is because Law might have a little bit of a worse matchup into, let's say, Kinemon, right? Because Kinemon has cards that can rest it, so you might have to build your deck a little bit different. All right, are you gonna play more Jet Pistols? Are you gonna play Gordons to deal with their what is it called? Their Odins, right? Are you gonna play Punk Gibson? How many Punk Gibsons are you playing? You have to think about things like that when you're deck building, right? That's all I wanted to say, guys. If you like this video, be sure to comment down below. Helps the algorithm out. Let me know what deck you guys are playing in the regionals coming up. Not just Texas, but maybe bigger tournaments, case tournaments, online regionals, that type of thing. Like the video, guys. It really helps me out a lot. Join our Discord if you haven't joined our Discord, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.